I'm Steve Brezinski. I'm an estate planning attorney at Axley, Brynelson here in Madison, Wisconsin.
And I'm Melissa Warner, and I am also an estate planning attorney with Axley Brynelson.
And today we're going to talk about estate planning for the family cottage. A lot of us have fond memories of visiting our family cottage or another family member's or friend's cottage while we were growing up, and a lot of us want to keep that possibility for future generations, keep the cottage in the family. There are a lot of issues that come up in these kinds of plans in accomplishing this desire. The first one is, where does the money come from? Cottages typically aren't rented, and some of them really can't be rented. They have recurring expenses for real estate taxes and insurance and improvement and maintenance, and where does that money come from? The second issue is, who gets to use the cottage? If everyone wants to use it on the 4th of July or Memorial Day or Labor Day, how are those issues resolved? Who gets to decide, and who gets to use it on the weekends when everyone wants to use it? Another issue is, what happens when the family cottage gets passed on from its current owners? If a child passes away, should their spouse, the original owner's daughter-in-law or son-in-law, be allowed to own an ownership interest in it? Should it go to stepchildren? Should it go to grandchildren in the next generation? The more owners you have and the larger group that you have owning it, the more difficult it is to keep it intact for the family to use. And finally, an issue that seems to come up all the time is, what happens when a child moves away? They move to California, the cottage is in Wisconsin, they frankly don't have an interest in coming and using it, they don't use it. Should their interest be bought out? Is it fair to have them required to have an investment in a cottage that they don't use? Is it fair to require them to pay for that every year even though they don't use it?
There are a couple ways to address the problems that Steve talked about. The easiest option is just to give the cabin to your kids. However, that option doesn't necessarily address the issues that Steve talked about. There's also the risk of losing the family cabin in one of the children's divorce, bankruptcy, or other creditor issues. A better alternative would be to put the family cabin in some sort of entity. One entity would be a limited liability company. With an LLC, the members agree to an operating agreement which can address contributions to the LLC to pay for the expenses of the family cabin. It can address both use and labor issues to make sure everyone is taking care of the cottage and doing their fair share. And third, it can address the buying and selling or transferring of a child's interest in the family cabin. The LLC can provide a mechanism to both value the child's interest and provide the payment terms and how that child will be bought out of the family cabin. The benefit of an LLC is there's a well-developed body of law that can address any issues that fall between the cracks of your operating agreement. An alternative to an LLC is a real estate trust. The real estate document itself can provide for contributions and payments, divide up the labor and use of the cabin, as well as also provide a mechanism for valuing a beneficiary's interest in the family cabin and then the payment terms for buying out that beneficiary. The downsides to a real estate trust is, number one, you need to have a trustee, and with having a trustee comes fiduciary responsibility and fiduciary liability, which can be difficult to navigate with respect to fighting beneficiaries. The second downside is the law surrounding real estate trusts is not as well as developed as it is with respect to LLCs. The bottom line is, you want to specifically address your family cabin in your estate plan.
Every family is different. Every family cottage is different. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. But with a proper and well-thought-out plan, you can increase the odds of avoiding conflict among family members and keeping that cottage available for the family to use for generations to come. Please visit us at Axley.com, where you'll find our contact information and useful articles and videos about estate planning and lots of other subjects.